about uh, uh, life in general and stuff that we need to do, and your books. So, Neil, you wrote a book. What is it called?
Well, I have actually more than one book. My latest book that is about to be published next month is called Hope City. It's my 5th novel. It'll be published on the summer solstice on June 20th, 2020.
So June 20th, 2020 is when you're publishing. What's the book about? What's your goal with this book?
Well, Hope City is historical fiction. It takes place in Alaska in 1898 during the gold rush in a little small town off the Cook Inlet. And it's a story about a 17-year-old young man who travels from San Francisco after he graduates from high school. And he's going to go up for the summer and experience the Alaskan gold rush. And it's his adventure down the rabbit hole over the next couple of months during the summer. And as he experiences all sorts of interesting events and characters along the way.
Okay. So what goes into writing a book? I know a little bit about the gold rush. My dad actually gold panned for years and years and years. So what goes into the research for a book like this? Did you actually go out and do gold panning and that type of stuff?
Well, I've been to Hope, Alaska, which is where this book takes place. It's called Hope City. So I've been to Hope, Alaska every summer for the past 12 years. Okay. So there's a history that I've always known about the city, of how it was named. And there's also a sister city called Sunrise that's no longer there. It's an abandoned city. So at the time, during 1898, there was Hope and Sunrise. Sunrise was the bigger of the two. During its peak in 1898, there was over 8,000 people there. That was the most populated city in all of Alaska for that brief time. Of course, everyone was rushing there to discover gold. They were coming from the Klondike, which the year before was 30,000 people in Dawson City. Getting to Hope and getting to Sunrise was a lot easier than getting to the Klondike, much easier. So there was a personal history with Hope. That's why I wrote the story. And if all goes well and I could get on a plane and they allow me into the state, I'm going to go up in July to launch the book in Hope itself.
Well, that would be awesome, just simply for the sake of being there to do it, right? It adds credence to the book more than anything else. I'm still here with you. There we go. Good old buffering. So in your creative process, what actually goes into writing a book? Do you start with all of your books? Do you start with an end in mind, or do you go from scratch, basically? Well,
I have a beginning in mind and have an end in mind. How I get from A to Z, I don't know. It's a journey along the way. So I write with some sort of idea of where I want to go, but I keep the story organic in the sense that I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't work with an outline. Many writers will work with an outline and know exactly how they're plotting it out. I choose not to. I like the method of writing a little more freestyle, so it's more of a creative process. It surprises me in terms of where I go with it, and then I think it surprises the reader when they read it, which is something you want. I mean, reader wants to be surprised and want to be entertained. They want to have some refreshing ideas that they weren't expecting, twists and turns. And I could do that by not sticking with an outline, by writing, what I call organically.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. When any creative outlet is very personal, and do you ever get the sense of, I don't know, in Greek mythology, there was a thing called the Muses, if you know what that is.
Of course.
Do you ever feel a connection with something out in the ether when you're writing? Does that make sense? It's a strange question, I know, but
no, not so strange, because a muse. I mean, many artists are inspired by a muse. A muse basically provides with inspiration. So that's where the word amuse comes from. So I have many muses. And I call on that inspiration because, when you're looking for, you want to generate emotion from your words. So to be evocative, You need real human connections, and so you need those types of those muses, that inspiration where to draw upon. Otherwise, your characters are flat, and you're not really, generating emotional responses from the reader. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of muses.
So you talk about characters being flat. How do you flesh out your characters from Bob on the street? He's a guy in a suit, and how do you make him to Bob connecting? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, the whole point is to show, not to tell. That's the editor's favorite comment. And of course, I get less of those comments now over the years since I've been writing from my editor. But when I first started, she was like, make sure you show, don't tell. So, I feel great is telling the reader. But if I say, I'm sitting on pins and needles, and I'm so excited, my head is turning in all different directions, and and I feel my blood boiling, or I'm sweating, or I have chills. Now I'm showing the reader. I'm evoking a response. So that's really the key, is to really just show and not to tell.
So from a writer's perspective, when you're reading a really good book and you almost get transported there, when you're doing the act of writing, does that happen as well, where it's almost like you're living what's happening in your imagination, of course, but it's almost like you're there?
Yeah, well, it happens because when you start writing the story, you're so into it. And I have dreams at night that, the story is actually continuing. And I actually have dreams I'm writing. So it's not that I remember everything I dream, but it does become part of you, and the stories become part of you. So I've written 5 books. Each one of them has a life of its own. Characters to me are as real as anyone walking around on the street. So yeah, they become real in my mind, which is important because I have to make it real for the reader to have some sort of belief in the story, even though sometimes what I write could be a little out there in terms of metaphysical ideas and stuff like that, and trying to stretch the reader's belief and giving some literary license and talking about things that there's no proof that exists. But I have to do it from a sense of credibility and possibility. And that's the challenge. And when you write things that are fictional.
That makes sense. I was talking to a young lady yesterday. She wrote a book as well, and she was explaining to me how characters will let you do things and also won't let you do things sometimes, where the character in your mind basically says, "No, I'm not doing that. That doesn't fit my character at all." Do you ever get the sense of that happening?
Yeah, I mean, many times my editor will catch me on things like that. And saying, that doesn't sound like that works with this character. It seems out of character, so to speak, for the character.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense, total sense. Because the characters have a personality. There's certain things they would do, certain things they would never do. So that's how you make them real.
Okay, that makes sense. We're at the 10-minute or 8.5-minute mark, and these interviews only last about 10 to 12 minutes normally, maybe 15 if we're really good. But I always end on a high note, or actually I was normally start on a high note, and I end on a high note too. Where can people get your book if they want to buy them?
You can go to my website, which is neilperrygordon.com, and that will send you to Amazon. You can also go to Neil Perry Gordon on Amazon and find all my books. You'll have 4 of my books are available now. The first 2 are available also in audiobook. The other 2 will be in an audiobook soon. So I publish all my books in ebook form, paperback, and audio. And then Hope City will be released. You could pre-order Hope City now, but it'll be released on June 20th on the summer solstice.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, yeah, because I wanted to find a date in June to release the book that has some sort of significance to Alaskans. Okay. So a really good friend of mine who I go visit every summer, we were talking about it. So I did some research about holidays in Alaska, and for some reason, there's Log Cabin Day in June, which was like, all right, if we can't find anything better, we'll do it on Log Cabin Day. But he says, what if we let's do the summer solstice? I mean, the summers in Alaska are very short, and they really celebrate summers up there. It's very important, obviously, as you can imagine, when the weather finally gets good. So summer solstice is a big deal. So that's what we decided to release on the summer solstice.
That's awesome. I like that. I thought maybe there's some weird metaphysical reason, but that makes perfect sense. So before we end the interview, I got 2 questions for you. We've already plugged your book. We know where to get it. If you could choose to be, this is the question of the week that I'm asking absolutely everybody. 25 people have been asked this already.
Okay.
If you could choose to be any animal, what animal would you be?
I would be an eagle.
And why?
It's just prestigious. I mean, also it's the when you go to Alaska, that is the bird you look for. That is the most magnificent creature you see. Just see them up in the nests. They're so grand. So yeah, the bald eagle would be my choice, I think.
Okay, and the last question I ask everybody, because we're all locked up now, because I'm not going to say why, but what's one thing you've done today for yourself, not for anybody else, to make you happy?
Oh, when I write, that's what I do for myself. I finishing a manuscript now, so I did a little more work on it before I send it off my editor in a couple of weeks. So yeah, anytime I could sit and have my creative process, my creative juices flowing, that makes me happy.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, that is the end of the interview. I'm going to end the broadcast, and we're good to go from there. Everybody, we're going to end in the traditional way. Neil, I just need you to wave bye to everybody. Wave bye. Bye, everybody.